Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio. WestchesterTalkRadio.com, produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robuston Oil, the house that service built, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, and by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, along with Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Here on the Sports Report, we are joined by John Buonamano. John Buonamano is the athletic director at Irvington High School, formerly of Croton Harmon High. John, a couple of years ago, you traded in the Tigers garb to become a Bulldog, and little did you know you'd be walking into a pandemic at the beginning of the 2021 school year, which of course hit at the end of the 1920 school year, and I guess as the spring sports season was getting ready to begin. How challenging have the last 2 years, your first 2 years at Irvington, been?
Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges. I think regardless of where I was, I was gonna be faced with the same challenges. Things loosened up a lot this year, but people, when we look back and we think of this year being 100% back to normal, it really wasn't until I would say the end. I think it was right before playoffs of the winter season, when we were able to allow everyone to come back into the buildings and stuff, because outdoor stuff resumed as normal from the fall, but the indoor stuff was not like that until almost the tail end of the winter season. So, there's a lot of challenges. We want to make sure everyone was safe, both our athletes and spectators. So, there's a lot of protocols that were put in place to ensure, everyone's health and wellness, overall. But, in the end, those challenges I feel were met by our student athletes and our parents and our spectators. And we were able to provide those experiences, those enjoyable experiences that we always look forward to providing our kids.
As an athletic director up and down the school system, in what manner did you have to most adjust to make sure everything moved along the last 2 years as best as possible?
Yeah, I would say that the hardest part in all this was just, having to limit, how many people were going indoors to see our events, making sure that protocols were shared with our opposing schools ahead of time, and making sure that the logistical element was a little bit more difficult. Just because we had to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone. So, as far as that was concerned, the most difficult time for us, it was really just, making sure that we were putting our athletes and those that were coming to watch our events were in a really safe environment. So, it required us to put on additional chaperone staff, checking people in, things like that, to make sure that, we were meeting whatever the state requirements were at the time. Again, they were changing, often. So just staying current with what was the most recent, regulations that the schools had to follow was something that we had to really stay on top of.
The blowback factor, was there any blowback, any kind of, you might get the odd person who says, oh, come on, we don't have to go this far. But from that standpoint, whether at home at Irvington or from, say, fans who wanted to come from other schools to watch their kids compete, which as parents, they do that, and other fans from school systems too, how cooperative was everybody all across the board?
Everyone was cooperative. I mean, I know how frustrating it was for people at times. Thankfully, our booster club offset the cost of local live for us, so we were able to stream our games both out on the field and also in our gyms. So, that was huge. So that parents, grandparents were able to, and fans in general were able to watch our games regardless of whether or not they were able to come. Like I said, last year or this past year, our outdoor events were open to everyone, so that wasn't really an issue, but we still, had to follow some protocols in the wintertime. And, we did our best as a conference to make sure that we were fully aligned with how many spectators were allowed to come in, because I know there was some conflicting reports on who was actually, how many spectators were allowed. And we had to follow, I just made sure that we followed whatever the regulation was from the state at that moment. And because we were schools, we were handled a little bit differently, and, I think some individuals, would question, why were we limiting so many people? But it was really, we were just following what the state, provided us. And, but like I said, for the most part, everyone was really understanding throughout the entire thing. I was very fortunate, being here in Irvington and having parents that were fully, understanding and on board with what was going on. So, but I'm sure, deep down, I'm sure they wanted more of those experiences, like traditional experiences that the athletes were accustomed to in the past. Again, we saw it in our outdoor events, how great high school athletics could be when everyone could be there. And luckily at the end of that winter season, we were able to invite everyone back in, to the gyms, and it made for such a great environment. That you saw the excitement in our fans, and what it did for our athletes too.
How did the student athletes adjust, those who had to compete and have had to compete the past 2 years? Any sense of trepidation? And even early on, like say in the fall of 2020, you got soccer out there, for example, and it's a contact sport. Football also, too. You get into the basketball season, players had to have masks on at one point, then it became optional, and yet it's a contact sport, and you worry about transmission. Were the student athletes, from your standpoint, from what I saw, from what you saw at Irvington and at different schools too, different schools that you competed against, did the students not exactly brush the situation off, but was there an attitude maybe of, well, we're young and studies say we should be okay, so let's go do what we do. Let's go get that 50-50 ball.
Yeah, I didn't see any trepidation from our athletes in regards to that. Once they stepped inside that field, they went all out. We had such a great year. All around, our fall season was phenomenal. We had, multiple teams win their respective leagues, and it was an amazing experience overall for them. I think, and watching them, even when they had to wear masks, I think that they did everything that they could possibly do to put themselves in position to have success. And I didn't see for 1 second anyone when they were on the court or on the fields holding back at all.
And you had some great masks, that green leather Irvington mask, right?
Yeah, we had the Booster Club. My first year, last year, had purchased those for our athletes so that they were, looking like a team out there wearing those masks. I know this year we transitioned a little bit to some of the other masks because the cloth masks were a little bit more difficult to wear during, competitions. Although they were thin, they were compliant. But I know that, at times it became difficult, and I could understand what it was like for them. It's difficult when you're trying to breathe through an extra layer of something that's not typically there, right? The just wearing a mask in competition, I know it felt uncomfortable for them. All the research showed that they did not reduce any O2 saturation for athletes, so it wouldn't really impact their performance. But I think we all know that, sports are more mental than anything. And when you're wearing a mask and it's covering your face and you feel that hot air constantly, it's just like very hot, humid type of air. It feels more difficult to breathe.
Yeah, you talk about sports being mental. I remember back in the mid-'90s, Rye High School had a championship swimmer by the last name of Reeves. He went on to the University of Florida, and I was producing the Con Ed Sports Awards show at that time when Bob Wolf was hosting. And Mr. Reeves came in with his coach for his week for a show 1 week after he had been named the Con Ed Sports Award winner that week. And this was the era where swimmers began to shave their heads when they got in the pool. So he came in with the shaved head. Bob and I both asked him, does it work? And he said, well, studies show that for a swimmer, every tiny little bit of friction that you take off should help you in the pool. Okay, but does it work? He said, I don't know, but in my mind, I already put it there that it does. So I'm going to keep doing it till I find out it doesn't. I went on to have a pretty good career at the University of Florida, too. I've never been an athletic director, but from a budgetary standpoint, all the things you've had to do since the pandemic hit, I'm sure that's taken a crunch out of the budget, provided a nice hit in areas that you did not expect at the beginning, and yet you had to shell the funds out.
Yeah, our business office was phenomenal in making sure that I had the coverage that we needed. We had to put additional staff members on for chaperoning and supervision purposes, a lot more than we typically do, because, initially we had to make sure that, everyone showing up was registered to be there, and we had to limit the amount of spectators that were coming in. So, we had a gate list that we, had to kind of abide by. And that was all the way up until, like I said, the wintertime this year, except for some of the outdoor sports. Again, because we didn't have limitations on that, but we did have to put additional chaperones on, and our business office did a phenomenal job with that. Even busing, initially we had to make sure that we had no more than 22 kids on a bus. So there were times we were sending 2 or 3 buses, depending on the size of the team, to competitions to make sure that kids were spread out on the bus and safe.
John Buonamano is the athletic director at Irvington High School, home of the Bulldogs, here on the Sports Report. Westchester Talk Radio. John, from a competition standpoint now, you did, as an AD, with all your coaches and student athletes working together, brought home a number of league championships and beyond these past 2 years, which was obviously tough to do because you had to get through the mental part of what was going on with COVID and more. Talk about this past school year and all the success that was had at Irvington. Let's go back to the fall and start there. You had a pretty good boys soccer team with a star player who I've seen since he was a freshman, and maybe before too, Isaiah Boyles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our soccer program, boys and girls, were phenomenal this year. The boys lost in the section championship game in a really tight one, but one of the most talented soccer teams I've seen, in a long time. Across the board, they when you watch them play, I felt like I was watching a higher level of soccer. It didn't feel like watching a high school soccer game. It felt like a high level collegiate type of soccer program. Bernie Keating was our head coach, with Ben Ovetsky as his assistant. So there was great leadership there for them. And, they did a phenomenal job. And on our girls' side, we lost in the semifinals to a tough Briarcliff team by a goal as well. And we had a lot of talent on that side. We're going to, miss Sarah Gavigan tremendously. She was a phenomenal goaltender who's going to actually continue her career at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Division I program. So we're excited to see, what comes from that. And, Pat DiBenedetto did a great job with them as well. It was an exciting season. Our field hockey program had their best season ever for the school. They won their respective league. And, unfortunately, our coach, who was a longtime athletic director up at Fox Lane, she unfortunately is retiring this year, so we're not going to have her anymore. But she was honestly a mentor to me throughout my transition here. She really helped us out.
And her name is, by the way,
Beth Sarpoli. I'm sorry, yeah, Beth Sarpoli was our
been around forever
and phenomenal. Not only a coach, a human being. And right. Like I said, she was one of those people that, knowing that she sat in my chair and went through a lot of stuff that I was going through last summer, she took time out of her, busy schedule to sit down with me and kind of go through how she worked through, situations and how she planned for the upcoming years and things like that to help me continue to grow as an athletic administrator. And, I'll be forever indebted to her. She's a phenomenal person. So she's going to be sorely missed. But all of our programs this fall, like our volleyball program, did a tremendous job. They did really well coming off of from the year before winning their league championship. I think that was the first one that they had ever had. Our basketball programs, the girls program, this winter got knocked out early, they got knocked out in the section championship, and our boys program got knocked out early, but that's a developing program. And we have great leadership there with Coach Marr, of course, with the girls and
45 years.
Yeah. And Dave Boykin, who is going to be doing their, he's going to be transitioning and making sure that our programs are moving forward, to the best of his ability too. So,
by the way, how did the girls adjust now? Because you got Katie LeBun going Ivy League, graduating now.
Yeah.
And this is not just, like what Charles Barkley likes to call just a guy. This is a star player that the team revolves and rotates around. As much of as all the girls have done on this team so far, do you kind of go back to them and say, hey, ladies, it's great what you've done so far, but no more Katie, so we need even more from you now?
Yeah. So, I think Coach Marr's been in this situation her entire career, and every year he had the same thing that, we're going to be down a little bit. But she is a tremendous coach, and she has a group of individuals that really work their tail off to continue that tradition of Irvington girls basketball, and BJ Constantine, who's alongside her for a long time as a player and as a coach now, and Caitlin Degnan at the JV level, another one who's been through her program, have done phenomenal work in prepping our student athletes. So, you're not going to replace an individual like Katie Labuna, as you mentioned. She's going to Harvard next year to play. We actually had 4 Division I commits this year, which is amazing. And another student athlete who's going to play Division III for track and field. But when you think about, people stepping forward and filling the role of that leadership that you lose, I think that Coach Marr and her staff, along with the players themselves, are going to do a great job. I mean, we had a young team. We look back, there's some leadership on that team. Again, Sarah Gavigan was a star soccer player, but she was also a tremendous leader on the basketball court as well, and tough as nails. So, individuals like that are going to be very difficult to replace. But, like I said, Coach Marr has always found a way to figure that part of it out. And, you could just see, the sustained success of the program. It's never really predicated on one person, although when you lose someone of Katie's, stature and abilities, it's tough.
To me, coaches like a Gina Marr like situations like this where they say, oh, maybe it might be a down year. And yet, they're putting it all together so that you can be as competitive as possible anyway. Yeah.
I mean, she is the ultimate competitor, very soft-spoken, and probably with an individual with 750 plus wins, one of the most modest people you ever meet. Another one of those individuals that I always look to for advice and work closely with, and making sure that not only her programs, but our programs throughout the district are in a really good place. And, she cares so deeply about Irvington athletics that it's great to have someone like that around. And, I told her when I first came on board, she's not allowed to retire for a while. I need to hang on to her for some time.
Another 45 years.
I'm learning so much from her too. So, I mean, she's just another. I've been so lucky, in my transition here, to have a group of coaches that, were really put in place prior to my arrival. I inherited many of them. And I could say about each and every one of them, they're great coaches, but they're even better human beings. And, I tip my cap to Artie McCormick and the former staff here who really put a lot of those individuals in place. And any openings that we have, I continue to look to fill with people, of that pedigree, because, ultimately we want to create those great experiences for our student athletes and our community. So,
Artie, of course, your predecessor, with 1 year with Stuart Hansen in between, and of course he's at Pearl River now.
Yeah, he's at Pearl River. I speak to him constantly. We just had our senior sports awards dinner the other night, and I was, peppering him with a lot of questions because, there's been some turnover in the department from him and the athletic assistant at the time, Lisa Torsha, who really knew a lot about, this program, but I leaned heavily on them, and along with Hannah Gross, who was here, throughout that. And again, I can't speak enough about Hannah. She's the best in the business, and helps me in so many more ways than just working with our athletes to make sure that they're safe and healthy.
You get the impression that she's an assistant coach in every sport, basically the real general out there on the field.
Yeah, she knows her stuff. She takes care of our athletes tremendously, but she is a support for not only our athletes, for our coaches, and for me as well.
And you had a pretty successful spring season too.
Yeah, we had, all of our teams made the playoffs again, and, our baseball program is young and developing. So I'm looking for us to continue to grow in that nature. Mike DiNardo has done a great job with those kids, and having such a young group of individuals. I had parents reach out to me recently saying what a great experience it was for them, even though they didn't have the end result that I think they're all looking for right now. They recognize that they're a young program and developing. So we're excited to see what they do in the future. Softball program too is continuing to work hard and get better every day under the leadership of Martin Resendez. And then we have our lacrosse programs with Pat DiBenedetto with our girls program, doing a phenomenal job. Those girls, lost a really tough one this year, and a goal in overtime. Right off the face-off, unfortunately, it ended kind of quickly. It was heartbreaking, but the girls played tremendously all year and did a great job in our boys program as well. Mike Schaefer is our head coach there, and he does a phenomenal job coming off of a year. I think last year we won the league championship, and we were right there again this year. But unfortunately, it is what it is. Teams on the other side of the field are practicing and working hard as well. And sometimes you win them, sometimes you don't. But the one thing that I could say is every one of our student athletes are led by individuals who really care strongly about growing them as people and not just as athletes. And
you will lose Beth Staropoli with girls lacrosse too.
Yeah, she was a JV coach, but she was instrumental in working with the head coach as well. She's got a lot of experience, years of experience there with lacrosse. And I know her entire family is involved with the youth lacrosse program here, in Irvington. And they do a phenomenal job at really creating that feeder program that ultimately benefits our high school programs. So, again, she's going to be sorely missed. I know she's going to be around. I told her I have her phone number, so she's never going to get rid of me. I'll be calling her when she retires completely and heads out to State College, where I know that was like one of her bucket list items is to live out there for a few years and, enjoy everything that, Happy Valley has to offer.
Yeah. Did you tell her, by the way, that, you may not be a coach anymore, but you're a consultant now?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I meant by like your phone, don't get rid of your phone, because I still might call. And she was always, we would laugh about it, but she's again, a great person, great human.
Give her my best next time you speak to her and tell her I said congratulations too.
Absolutely.
Thank you for everything she's done tell her thanks for everything she's done athletically in this county and around the section for 40 years or more.
Absolutely. She's been a huge advocate for all of athletics, but especially female athletics, just like Coach Marr. And it's again, it's a great opportunity for me to learn from people who've been a part of, Section 1 and sports for as long as they have been, and learn from them.
And by the way, the success of the track program, and especially here now, the boys track program this spring, that track program success goes back decades too, with the legendary, the late Pete Oley.
Yep. Yeah. And we, one thing I can't believe I forgot to even mention is, Coach Barry is the current head coach of that program, as well as our cross country program, which the cross country program this fall won the state championship, which was, an amazing feat. First time it's ever happened. And you think back about, Peter Oley and all he did for Irvington athletics and the cross country and track programs. He was really the benchmark of everything when it came to success with the program here. And Chris Barry has had the opportunity, worked with him, in the beginning of his career and got to learn from him. He always speaks about him being his mentor. But he was able to basically take that, that mindset and grow it and continue to have that sustained success that we see a lot with our girls basketball program. And whenever you see that, you know that the leadership that's in place is doing a phenomenal job at continuing to grow, the talent and those athletes that are work really hard at making sure that they give the best that they could give every single day. And, I just got back from, our state championship meet up at Cicero, North Syracuse this past weekend, where we had a couple athletes up there. We had Miles Demers is the student athlete who was up there this weekend, and then Liam Lyons also. So Miles finished, he just missed the podium this weekend in his race. And then we had Liam Lyons do the 1,600 meter, came third in the state in Division II. And actually, so he was up on the podium and was 0.04 of a second off of, I think it was 1982 record from the school. And he's had a phenomenal year. So that was one of the individuals that was instrumental in the state championship, cross country team this year. And he just carried it over, and his leadership is going to be sorely missed. He's going to Holy Cross. He's one of our Division I commits as well this year. Liam Sawian, who, had an injury that kind of hampered his opportunity to go up to states this year, but he would have been there if he was healthy. He's going to Lafayette this year, this coming year. So he's another Division I commit, from our program. So And then we have Lucas Toronto, who unfortunately was sick right before we headed up the States. He was supposed to be up there as well. And we wish him all the best, but he's going to Chapman University out in California, which is a Division III program, but one of the top ones out there. So really excited for all of our student athletes this year.
Now, what do you do all summer as an athletic director? People think you take off.
I wish.
Think you take off during the holidays, or as Rob Pollock down in Elmsford told me a few years ago, and I happened to call him one day about something during the holidays. He said, "What do you mean you're surprised I'm here? Today's Christmas vacation." He said, "You know better than anybody I never take off, and none of us take off." I said, "Sorry, Rob. Got it. Yeah." I said, "It's the holidays. I thought you might take one day off."
Yeah, no, I mean, we try to. I think there's always going to, no matter what field you work in, there's a balance between your home life and your work life, and you have to be mindful of it, because this job can overtake that your personal life a little bit at times, and so it is a balancing act with it. But I always tell people, family is always first, no matter where you're at. Make sure you take care of your family, but the Irvington family is also part of it. That's why I felt it was important that I was up at States, just to be there to support our student athletes up there, and it was wonderful to be there. But I'm already planning for next year. I'm working on a few projects that next year I would like to work with our student athletes, our parents, and our coaches with. I've read a book recently called The Confident Mind. Dr. Zinser from West Point is the author of that book. It just released, I think, in February. And it's all about, how athletes can build up their mindset to be positive and focus on those positive things that are going to ultimately help them be better athletes and better people again. Because again, it's not just about what it could transition or what it could do for you on the field, but in life in general. And, so I'm working on a project there. We're already scheduling. We just scheduled all of our, fall and winter sports programs. So we're just getting that, wrapped up, and then we're going to be on to spring already as far as scheduling is concerned. We have a lot of other things, all the purchasing and things like that happen throughout the summertime. And, I'm hopeful. I'm definitely going to be taking some time, with my family and going away a little bit and enjoying time with them, because during the school year, it's difficult to do that. But we're going to be busy throughout the summer. That's no doubt. There's a lot to be done and a lot of preparation that, helps the seasons go seamless, during the course of the year. So.
Mm-hmm. And come August 15th, I guess, sanctioned workouts begin for fall, correct?
22nd. Yeah,
22nd
August 22nd.
This year. Yeah, before you
August
know
22nd.
You're not going to have much time off, as it turns
Yeah,
out.
it comes quickly. But like I said, I'm going to balance that time with my family and making sure that I get things in place so that we have successful, seasons coming up. And you'll look forward to another successful year.
All the best, John Buonamano, the athletic director at Irvington High School, home of the Bulldogs. And John, special kudos to you and all the ADs around Westchester and Section 1 for all you've done the past 2+ years during this pandemic. I hope in the fall we can be totally back to normal and the word COVID becomes at least maybe not ancient history, but at least on its way into the history books. Yeah. John, we thank you, and we'll talk to you once the school year gets underway again. Enjoy your summer as best as possible, and congrats on all the athletic success at Irvington under you too.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. Every time we have a chance to talk, it's great. So thank you.
Yep, we'll talk again. John Buonamano here, Westchester Talk Radio. The Sports Report, John Marino with you, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built, by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, and by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube, and we have an app now. Take it with you 24/7, 365, anywhere and everywhere you go. It's called Westchester Talk.